Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever felt stuck in life, like no matter how much you dream, your reality just doesn't change? You keep waiting for the right moment to chase your goals, to fix your habits, to heal, or to finally become who you were meant to be. But that moment never comes. Why? Because everything you're waiting for is hiding in the very thing you're avoiding: discomfort. Today, we're going to uncover the truth. You will never grow until you get comfortable being uncomfortable. This message will challenge your mindset, stir your spirit, and wake you up to the power of pain, pressure, and perseverance. Growth never comes wrapped in comfort. It comes in storms. It comes in fire. It comes in the places you don't want to go. You see, we were never meant to stay the same. We were never meant to live a life of routine, repetition, and stagnation. We were designed to expand, to elevate, to be transformed, but transformation doesn't happen in ease. It happens in the pressure of pain, in the furnace of discomfort, in the shadows where faith is tested and character is revealed. The world teaches us to pursue comfort. It tells us to chase the path of least resistance. Build a life that's easy, predictable, and safe. But safe never made anyone significant. The man who walks the road of safety dies with his song still inside him. Comfort zones may keep you from failing, but they also keep you from flying. The moment you commit to growth is the moment you must declare war on comfort. Look at nature. A seed must be buried in the darkness of the soil before it ever touches the light. That seed is broken open in isolation, in silence, in the pressure of the underground. It doesn't sprout until it surrenders to discomfort. And you and I are no different. We want the harvest without the planting. We want the fruit without the pruning. But there is no rising until there's a burial. The ground of discomfort is the only ground where deep roots can grow. You will never know who you are in the light until you've been tested in the dark. Everyone can be faithful when it's easy. Everyone can praise when the blessings are flowing. But who are you when the heavens feel silent, when the fire surrounds you, when your plans fall apart and the answers don't come? That is where growth lives. That is where your soul stretches beyond itself. That is where you meet the real you, the you that can't be shaken by circumstances, the you that was born to endure, to overcome, to rise. You say you want purpose. You say you want strength. You say you want to fulfill your calling. But you can't have any of it if you're not willing to walk through some discomfort. Purpose is not a gift handed to you. It is a road you walk. And that road is paved with rejection, delay, loneliness, and fear. It's not a road for the faint of heart. It's a road for the willing, for the ones who understand that discomfort is not their enemy. It is their teacher. Growth is not a feeling. It's a decision. It's a commitment to keep moving forward even when it hurts. It's waking up and saying, I will not let my emotions decide my destiny. I will not bow to fear. I will not serve comfort. I will keep showing up. Day after day, step after step, bruise after bruise. That's how champions are made. That's how leaders are forged. That's how lives are changed. There is no resurrection without a cross. There is no mountain without a climb. There is no testimony without a test. You have to understand this if you want to grow. Because the moment discomfort shows up, you will be tempted to turn back. But if you would just endure, if you would just stay faithful in the middle, if you would just hold on while it's hard, you would see that what feels like breaking is actually building. What feels like loss is really preparation. Too many people quit when it gets hard. They stop dreaming. They stop believing. They settle. They shrink. But that's not who you are. You were not made to shrink. You were made to stretch. You were made to stand. You were made to fight through the tension and push through the pain. Not because you are perfect, but because there's something inside you greater than what's against you. Because there is a fire in your bones that discomfort can't extinguish. because you know that this valley isn't your home, it's your training ground. That you cannot carry the weight of your calling if you haven't developed the strength in your struggle. And you cannot develop that strength if you avoid discomfort. Every trial has been allowed to strengthen you. Every delay is building your endurance. Every heartbreak is expanding your compassion. Every obstacle is building your capacity. You just have to stop seeing discomfort as a sign that something is wrong and start seeing it as proof that you're growing. Stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this growing in me?" Because nothing changes you like pain. Nothing teaches you like pressure. Nothing humbles you like the wilderness. And nothing grows you like discomfort. We are not made in the palace. We are made in the pit. We are not defined by our comfort, but by our ability to endure discomfort for a greater purpose. So if you feel stretched, good. If you feel tested, good. If you feel like life is pushing you beyond your limits, good. That means you are on the edge of growth. That means you are right where transformation happens. Don't run from it. Don't curse it. Don't try to escape it. Embrace it. Sit in it. Learn from it. Let it do its work in you. Let it carve out the strength, the depth, the discipline, and the power you never knew you had. Because the you that will emerge on the other side of discomfort will be stronger, wiser, and more powerful than the you that went in. Comfort is deceptive. It whispers to you that you're safe, that you're fine right where you are, that there's no need to change, no reason to risk, no urgency to grow. It tells you that average is enough, that good is good enough. But the truth is, comfort is not your friend. It's your enemy in disguise. Comfort doesn't elevate you. It sedates you. It doesn't protect your potential, it buries it. Every time you choose comfort over calling, you trade your destiny for a distraction. Many people spend their entire lives serving comfort like a god. They structure their routines, their decisions, their relationships around what's easiest, what's most familiar, what demands the least of them. They never stretch. They never reach. They never surrender. And they wonder why they feel empty. They wonder why life feels shallow. They wonder why, deep down, something in them is always restless. It's because they were called to greatness, but settled for comfort. They were called to walk by faith, but chose to live by fear. They were called to make a difference, but chose to stay safe. You weren't put on this earth to be comfortable. You were put on this earth to be effective. You were placed here for impact, not ease. God didn't breathe life into your lungs so you could coast through your days doing what's convenient. You were born with a calling, stamped with a purpose, designed for a mission that comfort will always oppose. Because your calling will always cost you something. It will cost your comfort. It will cost your ego. It will cost your pride. It will cost your control. And that's why many never answer it. It's easy to dream when you're inspired. It's easy to speak bold words in moments of passion. But when the fire dies down and the routine sets in, comfort becomes seductive. It tells you that hard work can wait. That discipline isn't necessary. That faith can be passive. But every great man and woman who fulfilled their calling had to fight this lie. They had to step into fear, into risk, into the unknown. They had to leave the shallow waters of safety and wade into the deep waters of obedience. There's a reason why so many stay stuck in the same cycles. They want change, but they don't want challenge. They want the crown, but they avoid the cross. They want reward without responsibility, and that's why comfort is such a dangerous trap. It promises peace but delivers passivity. It makes you soft when life demands strength. It makes you slow when your calling requires urgency. Comfort convinces you that delay is harmless, but delay is often disobedience in disguise. There is no victory without vulnerability. No breakthrough without obedience. You cannot walk in your calling while clinging to your comfort zone. Sooner or later, you will have to choose. Will you stay in what's easy, or will you step into what's eternal? Will you protect your pride, or will you fulfill your purpose? The truth is, your calling will lead you into uncomfortable places. Places where you're stretched, challenged, misunderstood. But that tension is necessary, because without it, there is no transformation. Sometimes God will strip away your comfort not to punish you, but to propel you. Sometimes He will allow discomfort to break into your life, not because He's abandoned you, but because He's calling you higher. He's shaking things up because you've gotten too comfortable with less than you were created for. He's allowing your plans to fall apart so your purpose can finally come alive. Because calling always calls you out of comfort. Look at the stories of those who made history. They didn't sit back. They didn't play it safe. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They stepped out when it was risky. They moved forward when it was uncertain. They said yes when the outcome was unclear. And that's the difference between those who talk about change and those who become the change. One lives in comfort. The other lives in calling. And yes, walking. And your calling will cost you. It will separate you. It will stretch your faith and expose your fears. It will force you to confront the parts of you that prefer convenience over conviction. But it will also unlock something in you that you didn't know existed, a strength you never tapped into, a clarity that was buried beneath distraction, a passion that was asleep inside your soul. Your calling doesn't just change the world, it changes you, but you have to stop serving comfort like it's your king. You have to stop bowing to the false god of ease. Because as long as you idolize comfort, you will sabotage your calling. You will always choose what's familiar over what's right. You will always stay small when God is calling you to rise. The enemy doesn't have to destroy you if he can distract you. If he can lull you to sleep with comfort, he can keep you from the fire of your mission. He can keep you from stepping into the territory that belongs to you. You must decide to walk away from the shallow life comfort offers and walk into the deep waters of purpose. Your calling may not feel safe, but it is sacred. It may not be easy, but it is eternal. And when you stand before your Maker, you will not be asked how comfortable you were, you will be asked how faithful you were. Faithfulness will always cost you something, but comfort will cost you everything you were born to become. Pain is not the enemy we often believe it to be. In a world obsessed with ease, convenience, and instant gratification, pain is seen as something to avoid, something to run from, something that signals failure or punishment. But in the spiritual realm, pain carries purpose. It carries transformation. It carries revelation. Pain is often the very tool God uses to strip away what is false, to refine what is true, and to prepare what is next. We often ask, why me? When we're hurting, we wonder if we've been forgotten, abandoned, or left behind. But sometimes, it's in the pain that we are being drawn closer, not pushed away. It's in the tears that our hearts are being cleansed. It's in the breaking that something stronger is being built within us. If only we could see that pain is not just suffering, it's preparation. It's not just an interruption, it's a divine intervention. There are things you will only learn in the valley. There are dimensions of faith you will only discover in the fire. There are layers of strength you will only find when the weight feels unbearable. God never wastes pain. Not a single drop of it. Every ounce of heartache, every night of struggle, every moment of loneliness is being woven into something bigger than you can see. But it's not always visible in the middle. Pain blinds you before it builds you. It empties you before it equips you. It breaks you before it blesses you. Look at the lives of those who walked with purpose. They weren't shaped on the mountaintop. They were molded in the wilderness. They were forged in trials. They were tested by fire. David wasn't crowned king the day he was anointed. He was sent back to the sheep field, then chased, hunted, and betrayed before the crown ever touched his head. Joseph was given a dream, but his journey went through betrayal, a pit, slavery, and a prison before it ever reached a palace. Their pain wasn't a detour, it was part of the path. We often want destiny without discomfort. We want power without the process. But the process is where the preparation happens. It's in the quiet moments of anguish where endurance is built. It's in the betrayal where character is shaped. It's in the loneliness where identity is clarified. Pain presses you into questions no comfort can answer. Pain leads you into places where shallow living cannot survive. And in those places, you are introduced to the version of you that can carry what God has called you to carry. You cannot grow without pain. Muscles do not build without resistance. Trees do not root deeply without winds. Diamonds are not formed without pressure. The greatness in you cannot emerge until it has passed through something that tried to destroy you. You might see your pain as a setback, but heaven may see it as a doorway into deeper understanding, a doorway into refined faith, a doorway into a greater anointing that could only be birthed through affliction. It is in the pain that your prayers become real. It's in the pain that your worship becomes raw. It's in the pain that your dependence becomes total. When everything is stripped away, when the applause fades, when the plans fall apart, that's when you learn to lean. That's when you learn to surrender. And surrender is where transformation begins. Pain removes the illusion of control. It reminds you that your strength is not enough. And it invites you to lay down your will so that God's will can rise. In you, there are seasons where pain feels like silence, where you cry out and the heavens feel distant. But silence does not mean absence. Some of the most sacred work happens in the silence. Seeds grow in the dark, babies form in the womb unseen, and the deepest healing happens in places no one else can witness. Just because you can't see the purpose in the moment doesn't mean the purpose isn't unfolding. It is often later months, even years down the road, that you look back and see the fingerprints of heaven all over your heartbreak. There is purpose in your pain, but the enemy wants you to believe it's pointless. He wants to convince you that suffering means you're disqualified, forgotten, cursed. But nothing could be further from the truth. Sometimes, pain is the clearest evidence that you are on the edge of breakthrough. Because what the enemy uses to try to break you, God will use to build you. What the enemy uses to discourage you, God will use to develop you. What the enemy uses to shame you, God will use to strengthen you. The weight you are carrying may feel crushing, but it is also stretching. Stretching your faith. Stretching your obedience. Stretching your capacity to hold what is coming next. There is something sacred about the kind of pain that brings you to your knees, not because you're weak, but because you are finally aligned with the posture of surrender. That is the posture where miracles begin. That is the posture where new life is born. That is the posture where transformation begins. You might not understand your pain right now. It might feel unbearable, unexplainable, unjust. But pain is a classroom where God teaches in silence. Pain is a mirror where the soul is revealed. Pain is a furnace where impurities are burned away. And though it feels like loss, it may be the very thing that brings you into alignment with your assignment. Your greatest calling may come from your deepest pain. The place where you've bled the most may become the place where you heal others. The wound you're hiding might be the weapon God will use to set someone else free. Pain is not the end of your story. It is not a verdict, it is a vehicle. It is not your punishment, it is your preparation. Pain has a purpose, and that purpose is shaping you for what your comfort could never accomplish. Faith doesn't grow in the clear. It doesn't thrive in certainty. It doesn't flourish when everything makes sense. Real faith is born in the fog, in the mystery, in the silence between the promise and the fulfillment. It is forged in the waiting rooms of life, in the unanswered prayers, in the tension between what God said and what you currently see. We like to talk about faith when the doors open and the blessings flow. But faith does not develop in moments of celebration. It develops in seasons of uncertainty. You can't talk about faith without talking about trust. And you can't talk about trust unless you've walked through the unknown. Faith is not needed where control is available. Faith is not required when the path is paved. Faith becomes alive when the next step is hidden and all you have is a word from heaven and a whisper in your spirit telling you, keep walking. That's where faith becomes more than an idea. That's where it becomes a lifeline. Uncertainty is not a mistake. It is a setup. It's the place where heaven teaches earth what it means to believe without proof, to stand without clarity, to worship without reward. That's where faith breathes. It doesn't inhale instability, it breathes in surrender. When the foundation beneath your feet starts shaking and everything that once made sense falls apart, you begin to find out if you ever had faith or just familiarity. Because faith is not about knowing the plan. Faith is about trusting the one who holds the plan. We are conditioned to crave control, to want explanations, to demand answers. But faith is not built on explanations, it is built on revelation. It is rooted in the character of God, not the clarity of circumstances. And sometimes God will deliberately keep you in the dark not to confuse you, but to cleanse you. To strip you of your need to manipulate outcomes. To remove the idols of certainty that have replaced true trust. That place of uncertainty becomes sacred because it's where the relationship with God is no longer based on outcomes. It's based on intimacy. There are moments when the path forward is so unclear. All you can do is whisper, I don't know what you're doing, but I still trust you. That is not weak faith, that is mature faith. That is faith refined in the fire. That is the kind of faith that heaven responds to. Because that kind of faith doesn't need the full picture, it just needs His presence. That kind of faith doesn't require understanding. It only requires obedience. Faith that thrives in uncertainty is not loud. It is quiet, but unshakable. It doesn't scream with confidence. It whispers with conviction. It doesn't demand miracles. It walks faithfully in the mundane. It doesn't need the light to take the next step. It only needs the lamp unto its feet. When all you have is one step, faith says, that's enough. And when the storm rages, faith doesn't deny the wind, it rests in the assurance that the one who calms storms is still on the boat. There's a reason why. God often calls people into places where they feel unqualified, unprepared, and uncomfortable. Because that's where faith can thrive. As long as you feel fully capable, you'll lean on yourself. But when you realize you don't have what it takes, when your strength fails, when your wisdom falls short, that's when your faith begins to activate. You stop relying on your resources and start depending on His. You stop clinging to your plan and start surrendering to His. Uncertainty will either make you bitter or it will make you bold. It will either cause you to shrink or push you to grow. It will either stir up fear or stir up faith. And the difference lies in your perspective. If you view uncertainty as a threat, you'll resist it. But if you recognize it as a training ground, you'll embrace it. Because you know that God does His greatest work in the most uncertain spaces. He doesn't need the lights turned on to lead you. He just needs you to be willing to follow when all you can see is shadows. So many people wait for clarity before they obey. They wait for confirmation before they step. They wait for perfect timing before they move. But faith doesn't wait, it walks. Faith doesn't sit, it stands. Faith doesn't ask, is it safe? It asks, is it God? And once that answer is yes, the direction is clear, even if the details are not. Faith says, I don't need to know everything. I just need to know that God is with me. There is something powerful about walking with God through uncertainty. It breaks your pride. It awakens your dependence. It silences the noise of the world so you can hear the whisper of His voice. It reveals who you are, and more importantly, it reveals who He is. You begin to learn that He is faithful even when life isn't fair, that He is present even when He feels silent, that He is working even when nothing is moving. Uncertainty trains your spiritual senses to see beyond what's visible and believe beyond what's logical. Faith that thrives in uncertainty is dangerous to darkness. It cannot be manipulated. It cannot be bought. It cannot be controlled. It is rooted too deeply in the truth of who God is to be shaken by shifting circumstances. It walks through fire without being consumed. It marched through deserts without dying of thirst. It faces giants without trembling. Because its foundation is not found in what it sees, it's found in the unseen. And the unseen is where the eternal lives. Faith doesn't ask for proof. It moves on promise. It doesn't demand comfort. It thrives in challenge. And when you find yourself surrounded by uncertainty, when your plans unravel and your questions remain unanswered, you are not failing, you are being fortified. That's the place where your spirit grows strong, your heart grows soft, and your vision becomes clear. That's where your roots grow deep enough to carry the weight of your calling. That's where your faith becomes dangerous enough to fulfill your destiny. That is where faith truly thrives, not in certainty, but in surrender to the one who never changes even when everything around you does. You were not created for a life of ease, but for a life of impact. And that impact will never be born in places of comfort. It will be carved out through discomfort, challenge, and surrender. Everything God desires to do in you and through you will demand that you step away from what feels safe and step into what feels uncertain. Because growth does not live in what you already know. It lives in what you're willing to walk through. Discomfort is not a curse. It is a calling. It is the voice that says, "There's more for you." It is the whisper of heaven urging you to rise, to stretch, to leave behind the shallow waters of comfort and launch out into the deep. It is the breaking that makes room for rebuilding. It is the shaking that clears the ground for new strength. If you keep chasing comfort, you will forfeit your calling. But if you dare to endure the fire, you will find the gold that's been hidden inside your soul all along. And yes, there will be pain. There will be moments when you don't understand, when the tears won't stop, when your strength runs dry. But pain has a purpose. It is not here to destroy you, it is here to define you, to refine your heart, to strengthen your spirit, to push you into places of dependence where your faith becomes more than a phrase, it becomes your foundation. What feels like a setback is often the exact process required to unlock your destiny. When the path isn't clear, and the answers don't come, and the doors don't open, that's where faith is invited to rise. That's where your roots go deeper. That's where your spirit begins to walk by trust, not sight. Because faith does not require certainty, it thrives in uncertainty. And when everything in you wants to give up, give in, or go back, the voice of your calling will rise and say, "Press on. Keep walking. Keep believing. Keep standing." You were not meant to stay stuck. You were born to grow, to build, to overcome, to rise. And to do that, you must get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where your strength is formed, your purpose is revealed, your calling is refined, and your faith is proven. That is where God shapes the vessel who will carry His fire into a world desperately in need of truth, courage, and light.